Dear good people of Kaduna State, it has been exactly 2 months since I took the oath of office as your governor, a position of responsibility that you bestowed on me with your votes. In my inaugural address, I outlined our vision for Kaduna State and mentioned some of the things our administration will accord priority. Today, I'm pleased to state that we have begun to put in place some of the things we promised to do. A few days to our inauguration, we announced the appointment of some key staff of the administration. The deciding factor was not ethnicity or religion, but the education, experience, and capacity to get things done for the benefit of the state. We have therefore selected and appointed capable and competent Nigerians that we trust to work selflessly for the people of Kaduna State. It may be early days yet, but I can assure you that we're already benefiting from that tremendous wealth of experience in various sectors. We took seriously the importance of setting the tone of our administration, and this is opening windows of opportunity for Kaduna State. Permit me to again express my gratitude to the choice you made to vote for the APC and to reassure you that my party, team members, and I are totally dedicated to doing the work that you've elected us to do. However, we must be under no illusion that the task at hand would be an easy one. Without overflogging the issue, it must be stated that the level of decay we inherited was far worse than we imagined. Immediately we assumed office, we devoted our first week to receiving briefings from the ministries, departments, and agencies of the government. This set the stage for the transition committee, which we established a day after we were declared elected in April, to resume work on a final report which has now been completed and submitted. I thank all the decent, hardworking men and women that worked round the clock pro bono as members of the transition committee to produce the excellent interim and final reports that have guided our government so far. Thanks to these 3 months of fact-finding efforts, we now have a clearer picture of the state of affairs we inherited, and it is not a pretty picture. While we will never use the poor condition which we made the state as an excuse, it is our belief that we owe the people of this state the duty to let them know the reality on the ground. I will share some of this information with you to enable everyone have a clearer picture of what we met on the ground. Kaduna State was left prostrate by the last administration. Our first shock after preliminary analysis of the finances indicated that even after combining receipts from the Federation account and internally generated revenue, the previous government could not settle personnel and overhead costs of the state and local governments without monthly borrowing. In simple terms, the former Kaduna State government and its local governments existed only to pay salaries, and they borrowed monthly to keep the government running. The civil servants and the political appointees, that is, the servants of the 8 million people of Kaduna State, were consuming over 100% of the income of the state, leaving nothing for the development of education, healthcare, agriculture, roads, and water supply. We all will agree that there is no family that will accept a situation in which 90% of the revenues are spent on the houseboy, housegirl, and the cook. Yet, that is what the former state government and all the local governments were doing. The state therefore became highly indebted. The total indebtedness of the state as at 31st May 2015 was 74.297 billion, comprising 28.84 billion in domestic debt and 45.44 billion in foreign debt. The state government alone had unsettled liabilities to contractors, consultants, and suppliers of about 25 billion and shortfalls in pension contributions of 8.371 billion. The extent of the debts and liabilities of the local governments, 23 local governments, is still being collated. These state debts need to be serviced, and the high debt service cost is weighing heavily on the state and adversely affecting capital expenditure flexibility. For instance, the 2015 budget earmarked 10.8 billion as the cost of servicing existing debt. We are considering our options for responsibly managing the debt burden we inherited. Aside from the huge debt, the new administration also inherited cash deficits and poor liquidity. As of 31st May 2015, the Kaduna State government had only 228,333,371 naira and 67 kobo available in the bank as money that the government can actually spend. The previous administration also incurred outstanding liabilities in excess of 1.37 billion naira by May 2015, effectively leaving the state in the red, as the working capital of slightly over 228 million was less than the liability incurred. In an effort to obscure the deficit they had placed the state in, the previous government resorted to pretending that committed funds were available to be spent. Committed funds are monies that cannot be spent by the government because they are already earmarked as counterpart and reserve funds for specific purposes such as MDGs, SUBEB, SURP, and pensions contributions. These committed funds amounted to about 8.56 billion naira as of 31st May 2015. In the past couple of years, at least 80% of the state revenues were spent on running the government and satisfying the wants of a few that had been elected and appointed into office. We have taken this time to explain these details of the state's finances to enable every citizen to get the true picture of what we met on the ground. However, we have a duty to tackle the untidy mess the state finances have been. We have taken steps to curtail our expenditure and devote more of it to development. Our immediate response is that it is obvious that running Kaduna the old way is a recipe for disaster. One of the steps we took was to cut overheads by 60%, therefore directed the State Accountant General to release only 40% of budgeted overheads as we strive to improve liquidity and prioritize spending for public goods. However, our efforts in this regard are not on the expenditure side alone. As we cut costs, plug leakages, and reduce waste, we need to grow our revenues and have more realistic budgeting in the state. We are therefore focusing on strategies to rapidly increase our internally generated revenue. We are conscious of the fact that as things stand, Kaduna State relies on federal allocations to be able to pay salaries. The state simply does not collect enough internally generated revenue. In the last 5 years, IGR, internally generated revenue, has been able to finance only about 15% of the budget. We are committed to improving IGR and thus reduce our dependence on federal allocations. The committee we set up to review our tax system in the state, led by former chairman of the Federal Inland Revenue Service, Mrs. Ifeko Omogi Okaru, is about to complete its work. We shall promptly act on its recommendations to improve revenue generation and collection. We have also decided to make the budget conform to the state's financial reality. Over the years, the Kaduna State budget has become a process to justify spending, not a mechanism to achieve results, structure economic development, and improve social cohesion. Even with that, less than 40% of the budget has been implemented since 2008. Actual capital spending stood at just about 26% in 2013. In the same year, health sector implementation was just 14% of planned expenditure, while for town, urban, and regional development, it was just 1%. When the budget was so disconnected from reality and the same unrealistic figures are increased every year, development cannot be realized. We'll henceforth rigorously match realistic expenditures to sustainable revenues. Therefore, budgeting in Kaduna State will henceforth be based on the zero-based budgeting system. This means that every expenditure item will have to be justified both in terms of its necessity, cost, and availability of funds vis-a-vis other competing needs before it gets included in the state budget. There is no reason to legislate 200 billion as annual budget when the realistic revenue and expenditure capacity is clearly less than 100 billion. As we noted during the campaign, our schools and hospitals are in poor shape. We are outraged that about 50% of our primary school pupils sit on bare floors, often in facilities that lack water, toilets, windows, or even roofs. Many schools do not have enough teachers, and a lot of the teachers themselves need further training to enable them truly educate our children. Our healthcare system is similarly challenged by capacity failures and shortage of tools and equipment that are often mitigated by dedicated personnel. as governor, I've had cause to take a child to a public hospital at 5 a.m. in the morning, where I saw a doctor on call along with very busy health workers, but the pharmacy had no drugs. What we have done so far is to look at the work of change. The work of change that you charged us to do requires a commitment to sacrifice, cooperation, and hard work by all. So far, we have started taking the necessary decisions to set new directions for the state and make the government an enabler of development rather than a guzzler of revenues. We have made clear our intention to devote a larger chunk of the state's resources to providing public services. We have signaled that a government elected by the majority vote should serve the majority. Now on governance. We have reduced ministries to 13 from 19. This has enabled us to reduce the number of permanent secretaries to 18 from the previous 35. As stated earlier, we have slashed overheads by 60% across the board as we seek to do more with less. Our deputy governor and I have tried to set an example by taking a 50% cut in our salaries and allowances. Your government has also decided to save the monies hitherto spent on feeding, gifts, and pilgrimage. In 2014, over 2,000 pilgrims were sponsored to the Hajj by the Kaduna state government and the 23 local government areas. Out of the 810 Christian pilgrims, 800 were sponsored by the same governments in 2014. All this cost the governments nearly 1.5 billion in just 1 year. Our state simply cannot afford this expense any longer. Our government has concluded the first round of biometric verification of its employees. We again condole the families of our workers who were victims of the bomb blast at the Dogarawa Secretariat of the Sabongari Local Government Council. I pay tribute to the civil servants for their understanding and commitment to the success of the verification project. It is in the interest of every responsible citizen to eliminate those workers from the state's payroll. We have nearly saved nearly 120 million so far, and are reviewing the figures from the exercise and will apply the lessons learned in subsequent phases. We are determined to weed out ghost workers from the state and local government payrolls and will introduce additional measures in the coming weeks to apprehend and prosecute those involved in this fraud. We are studying the options to improve our internally generated revenues and reduce our dependence on federal allocations. Our deputy governor and I are committed to not drawing our full salaries until our IGR exceeds Federation account allocation for at least 3 consecutive months. On transparency, your government has decided to domesticate the Freedom of Information Act in Kaduna State. We have forwarded the bill to the State House of Assembly for passage. We have also signed up to Open Budget, a web-based tool that enables you to track what we are doing with your money. In the area of healthcare, Kaduna State has signed a memorandum of understanding with General Electric Healthcare to modernize our primary healthcare centers and public hospitals. Both parties have committed to identifying the specific needs of the centers and hospitals so that modern equipment can be installed to improve the diagnosis and management of patients. We shall sharpen our focus on primary healthcare by the full implementation of primary healthcare under one roof policy. We have therefore sent this framework as our first executive bill to the State House of Assembly. This focus includes a project to fully equip at least one primary healthcare center in each of the 255 wards in the state, and at least one general hospital in each of the 3 senatorial districts. In addition to providing better facilities, we'll be recruiting more doctors, nurses, midwives, and technologists for our improved hospitals. We have signed the 2015 Kaduna State UNICEF Work Plan. The state government is ready with its counterpart funding for the agreed initiatives in healthcare, nutrition, HIV/AIDS, water, sanitation, and child protection. We have installed 2 dialysis machines and have repaired 3 dialysis equipment at the Barau Dikko Teaching Hospital. We hope to take delivery of 4 other dialysis machines to be installed at our general hospitals in Kafanchan and Zaria within weeks. Arrangements are being made to purchase consumables for the next 12 months so that dialysis will be affordable to Kaduna citizens that need it. On security, we are engaged in collaborative security operations with neighboring states. The security forces are now executing the comprehensive security plans agreed by the governors of Kaduna, Sokoto, Zamfara, Katsina, Kebbi, and Niger states to address the serious security challenges in the forest ranges of Kamuku and Kuyambana that stride our respective states. The security operation has commenced, and several camps of the criminal gangs have been destroyed and thousands of stolen heads of cattle recovered. We are therefore grateful to the federal government for deploying its security assets in the ongoing operation to make our 6 states safer and more secure. We've also established a fact-finding and community engagement committee chaired by the respected General Martin Luther Agwai, which is working to identify the causes of conflict and insecurity in southern Kaduna, and thereafter recommend ways of tackling the problem. The committee has been in active engagement and tours around Kaduna South Senatorial District, and we are confident that it will make far-reaching recommendations to bring peaceful coexistence back to our state as a whole. The committee will submit its report early in August by God's grace. On demilitarization, your government has made efforts to boost confidence levels of citizens and encouraging increased vigilance without reliance on roadblocks. More public roles are being undertaken by the civil police as we encourage our security forces to deepen their access to proactive intelligence. We are also empowering our traditional institutions to restore their security and intelligence networks that served our communities so well in the past. A high-powered committee chaired by the Amir of Birnin Gwari is working around the clock to assist the government in this effort. Now to job creation. We have signed an agreement with UAC Property Development Company, UPD,